The Rundown is brought to you by Commonwealth Brewery Limited. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us again. Some important issues we're discussing tonight. Well, last year, July, Parliament passed legislation to allow for the cannabis to be used in the Bahamas. However, it will only be allowed for medicinal and religious purposes. On Monday in Parliament, the Honorable Michael Darville announced that amendments to the Pharmacy Act regarding cannabis use are forthcoming. Here's what he had to say.
Further, the amendments to the Pharmacy Act, coupled with the new cannabis seed-to-sale digital platform that will be the engine to manage the cannabis industry and help bring into force the medical cannabis legislation with the implementation of the cannabis e-prescription platform. So if we were to go back and look at the bills that were brought to this honorable chamber for the cannabis industry, you will see that in order for the industry to go, all cannabis prescriptions will be via e-platform and not written. That way, we would have better control to monitor and prevent the misuse in the prescription area.
Okay, there you have it, Dr. Darville talking about what they're looking at doing and how they're looking about going about it. So many of you hear the word cannabis and you're like, interesting. Tonight, our guest is Miss Anu Solomon. Don't you remember that name? Because she's a Canadian expert horticulturist with a strong background in modern farming techniques, regenerative agriculture, and sustainable practices. However, tonight we're going to have a discussion in one area of her expertise, cannabis. She currently serves as a lead consultant at Cryocan Enterprises, where she focuses on developing cannabis-infused pharmaceuticals for chronic pain management. That's the key. Over the past several months, we engaged in meaningful discussions with Solomon regarding the draft cannabis legislation proposed for the Bahamas, anticipated to take effect in July this year. Now, her comparative insights into the cannabis regulatory framework have been both practical and enlightening as we explore international best practices. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to jump right in because obviously, I don't want to assume our viewer audience understands this whole thing about cannabis, because it's been an interesting pathway trying to educate Bahamians on what it is happening, what is being proposed. So when we talk about cannabis, what does that really mean in essence? You hear the word cannabis.
Well, stigmas aside, cannabis is now being touted as a very, very powerful healing medicine. So not only is it used for recreational purposes, but back in Canada, we have medicinal programs, we have research programs, analytic research development to create some special products that aren't really available on the market elsewhere. So in regards to opiates, we wanted to create a natural option for somebody. You know, there's patients out there that don't want to take the opiates or the prescription drugs. Right. Cannabis offers an alternative that is a safer practice. Side effects aren't as, you know, when you see some of the side effects for some of these prescription medications, right? It's like, now, do I need a medication to counter what I'm taking this medication for? Whereas cannabis, the concept of cannabis is to get rid of the stigma of the stoner. Right, the dirty weed, the stoner. That's
the mentality of a lot of people, because that's what pretty much we've been introduced to in this country.
Yes.
We're now learning about the medicinal uses of it, but before, when you talk about cannabis, you talk about marijuana, you talk about the drug, the illegal drug, and what it does to people. And so now you have to spend this time trying to recalibrate people's thinking and mindset about the word cannabis, and that it's not something I should be afraid of to the religious community, not something that is against the law, but understanding really what it is and what it does. And I want you to go some more into detail about the uses of cannabis so people have a better understanding.
Okay, so when we talk about cannabis, what a lot of people are not overly familiar with is that there's different cannabinoids within the actual cannabis plant. And the psychoactive part of cannabis is the THC. So that's what gets people the high everyone talks about. But from a medicinal standpoint, there are so many other compounds within the cannabis plant, such as CBD. CBD is a cannabinoid that actually has no psychoactive properties. So somebody, say a diabetic, right? A diabetic has their nerve damage and their nerve pain, but they're not comfortable using a THC product. But they could try the CBD and there's no side effect of being high. So
that's important for people to know. So
very, very
not
important.
everyone who takes medicinal purposes of cannabis will get high.
No, sir. If you are taking, like, that's the point of the education behind it, right? Education, awareness, community seminars, teaching, and that's why bringing the education factor of the medical properties and what this plant can do for you without getting you high is what people need to understand. The opportunities for giving people an alternative, giving people choice. Choice is what is really about living, right? If you don't have a choice, how much are you enjoying life, right? So when you're taking prescription medications, and prescription medication and alternative medicine, natural medicine should always work together.
Right.
They don't need to be arguing with each other. It's not this or
that. Yeah.
It should be this and that, right? Everything conventional and holistic should always go together. The science research is there. And then, you know, you take things like that and people don't understand that you can use a cannabis-based product that isn't going to get you high. And so that's where a lot of people are afraid to try, like for sleep, for example. The CBD is wonderful for people with insomnia. CBD is wonderful for people with anxiety and depression. And the nice thing is you don't also have to smoke. Cannabis doesn't have to be just, you know, smoking all the time. There's options, there's edibles, there's gummies, there's foods, there's now beverages. You know, the thing about things like transdermal patches for the future, right? And that's where the research would come in and the trials come in.
Right.
So the use of cannabis has been so stigmatized for so long as just this plant that gets you high. Right? But myself, you can see I wear braces. I actually have one of the most painful types of nerve damage in the world, and I actually can't take prescription medication for it due to my allergies. So cannabis, CBD, cannabis, that is actually the one thing that helps me get through my day.
So you use it?
I do. In Canada, not here, not here.
Of course.
When I'm back home, I do. When I'm back home, I do. But yeah, very much so, because there's days where I can't actually pick up a glass of water. I can't hold a pen and write. Some days I can't walk. Some days I can't speak properly. And the use of cannabis, I have many, many different strains that I would go to, because if I need to focus and work, obviously I don't want to use a psychoactive plant. But I still need to be able to focus, and I need my pain management as well. So that's where a product that is higher in the CBD with minimal THC in it, now I can be at work and I can function and I don't have to worry about intoxication.
What kind of form do you take? You take the gummies, or what form do you use?
Well, I prefer, everybody likes to sit down and smoke a joint every now and then to relax. But for the most part, if you're concerned about respiratory health, right? Big thing for people is the burning of a joint. So if many options are, like I said, so the gummies are a great alternative. I use the gummies. I don't mind the odd brownie every now and then. And dosage is really important. This is one thing, is if the product is being made properly with proper formulation and the chemistry, you're going to have proper dosages. And that's a big thing, is when people are just making products and they're not using any type of regulation or a standardization, this is when it becomes, you hear the stories about, oh, someone gave me a brownie and I was so sick on the floor. And again, so that's the lack of education, lack of awareness, and improper dosing. So back home, I offer like community seminars, workshops, school awareness, things like that, so that way we can help educate people who normally wouldn't think to use cannabis. Senior citizens come to me all the time and they're like, how do I use cannabis? Right? So if people want to smoke, I explain to them you can roll a joint and do that, but then there's also other alternatives that are healthier for your respiratory health, like vapes. Vaping with flower, not necessarily the chemical concentrates, but if you take the actual flower, there's specific vape apparatus that you can actually use the flower and you don't get that combustion. So you won't have the issue of the carbon, the respiratory issues. So there's safer ways to actually consume in a smoking form. But again, there's oils. There's, again, so we have the food products, then we have the oils. We also have topical products. right? So certain topicals could be used if somebody has a nerve damage, for example, and they don't want to consume cannabis internally. There are products that can be made that are topical. They don't go into your bloodstream and create that high from the psychoactive effects, but it does penetrate the cell membrane enough to impact your nervous system and help reduce the pain. So somebody who doesn't want to ingest cannabis, they don't have to. They could work with somebody who understands a topical product, and as long as it's done, again, standardization and regulation is very important because you need to make sure the dosing is right. And by creating a standardization across the board, that means everybody understands the product is safe. We have 2 governing bodies back home in Canada. We have the Health Canada agency, and then we also have the Six Nations Cannabis Commission. So we have 2 agencies that ensure a safe, standardized product. And so when you go to a store and you purchase these products that have been registered within Health Canada or licensed under the Six Nations Cannabis Commission, that is to the public saying this product is safe. This product has been quality control tested. This product has probably gone through some sort of HACCP, hazardous analysis, critical control point. You know, there's always going to be safety parameters put in place when you have a quality assurance program and you work with a regulatory agency.
And it's important to say that these things, that you always trust the products that have been approved by approved accredited boards.
Correct.
Right? And those stores or the agencies that carry that, there should be something that says that.
Yeah, so there's a label that goes on the product. We have registered licensed retail stores. I mean, there's always going to be the illicit market stores that pop up everywhere.
Of course.
But when you're registered with a Health Canada...
You know the difference.
Yes,
you know the
sir.
difference. We were in New York a few weeks ago, and there was a cannabis store in New York, and you could tell the difference. You know, I walked in as a part of my research that I'm working on, and I saw, you know, things were very well labeled. They had the logo on it, and they were explanations, so you can actually tell this is not just a flyer. Now you don't walk in here and say, okay, I just want some, I want some marijuana. They told you what they were for and when they were there. We were able to get some products for a colleague of mine, Karen. He needed to get some stuff, so we were able to get it for him. But it's labeled, and it specifies what it's there for. And it blew my mind on the amount of use, the various forms that you can use for cannabis. Again,
it's about option, right? Choice and option for people that want to use it.
Wow. Wow. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more about how do we implement this and do it in a safe way and ensure that it's contributing the right way to society, and how you deal with the risk factors of those who try to abuse it. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. Stay with us. You're watching The Rundown. We're back right after this. Stay close.
Join us each Sunday at 5 p.m. and Tuesdays at 2:30 p.m. for Legends, the Untold Story, here on the ZNS Television Network.
As we continue to develop the orange economy of the Bahamas and empower our artists and artisans, we as a government intend to show tangible support. We are therefore requesting our Bahamian artists and artisans to submit images of their handmade, authentically made Bahamian products and prices as we move to produce a live digital booklet with Bahamian-made works. With the creation of a live booklet, artisans can always submit new works to be included. It is our intent to use this book as a catalog for the purchase of items by all senior government officials for gifts, display items, and the like. Ministers, permanent secretaries, members of parliament, and ambassadors will be supporting our orange economy by the purchase of items and in sharing this book to the wider global creative community. We are committed to grow and expand the orange economy of the Bahamas.
Hey, ladies, where's the Dave? Oh, okay, thanks. Bets.
Greg, what's up?
Very man, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
You up?
He's meditating. You gotta give him at least an hour.
All right, well, I can wait. I ain't got nothing to do. Been privatized sale now on to independence.
Welcome back. My guest tonight is Anu Solomon. Of course, she's an expert in the field of cannabis, coming out of Canada and helping us understand just how this works and what goes along with it, and all of that good stuff. And I guess I want to talk about the fact that the appetite for marijuana is appearing to be growing among youth in the Bahamas, strangely enough, and it's not medicinal purposes, it's just the appetite for marijuana. What can you tell us and our viewers about cannabis and marijuana itself?
So from the youth point of view, what I would say to your youth is, I mean, you can't stop your kids from using cannabis. For the parents, what I would definitely say is talk to your kids about it. Because you know what? It's better to be the parent having the uncomfortable conversation, but at least knowing what your children are doing, than your kids hiding it behind your back, right? And from a youth point of view, I think kids would probably feel really good and be like, this is kind of cool. I get to talk to my parents about pot, right? So I think it would be a wonderful thing for both parents and youth to understand. Youth need to understand that depending on what age they are, cannabis can have impact on certain developmental processes in younger people. But we have to remember too, right? At one point, alcohol was illegal also, and the damage that alcohol can do to the body. We went through that process, underage drinking and all that sort of stuff. So we are breaking ground where we've already broke ground, but same shoes, different street kind of thing at this point. So, you know, education, being open and having those conversations, because if you normalize cannabis use with your kids, then it becomes less cool. Especially if mom and dad smoke pot, it's not as cool to the kids. It's not as taboo, right? So essentially, you want to be open about it. Don't make it such a taboo thing, because the more taboo you make it, the more enticing it becomes, right? So be open, have those conversations. And again, with what Bahamas is doing now, I mean, as Canada has our regulatory agencies, you know, Bahamas has a prime opportunity to set up like their own Bahamian cannabis certification standards as well. And then you would have your own regulatory bodies that ensure that the public is getting a safe product. They're not getting something that's going to make them sick. There's it's clean use. It's not bad pesticides being used on their product. And that's why, you know, the opportunity that your country has right now for doing the legalization of cannabis is so exciting for someone like me who's watched other countries do their legalization, and you're at the groundbreaking point, and your location, your geographical and environmental locations set you up for something that could be so good for your people as well. I mean, the corporations can benefit from it, the government can benefit from it, your people should be benefiting from it as well, right? So the education piece behind that, I mean, everyone talks about when you bring a cannabis industry to a new country, obviously there's going to be lots of jobs. That's great. That's a given. We're always going to have the jobs. But why not reach out to the universities? Why not start teaching proper university programs on the beginnings, from cultivation to quality assurance to business to the import to the export, from start to finish? If somebody's interested in being in this industry, offer accredited university programs that will teach them everything they want, with world-class experts coming in to teach your people. Keep that knowledge within your country as well, right? And then we start at the universities, even your medical programs, right? UB has an amazing medical doctorate programs. If we have analytic labs already, and I know you have a multi-million-dollar plant science lab already here that's not
you know about it. Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes, and I'm excited to see that. So you already have some of the infrastructure set up here that would allow your people to get the education and the awareness. And so with university programs being available, then that also helps get rid of that stigma of cannabis being this messy, dangerous stoner plant. Because if you incorporated medical cannabis research in your doctorate programs, that would help your doctors coming out of UB have fundamental conventional medicine understanding, but then why wouldn't they have some training in the background of cannabis? Because nowadays, when you look at long-term healthcare facilities, places like that where there are patients that are coming to the end of their life, a lot of them are looking for alternative medical options that don't just turn them into a zombie or make them feel like really doped out. And a lot of people are turning to cannabis for that use. Like death doulas, PSWs have come to me and they're like, I have clients that are asking me, they use cannabis now, but I'm not familiar with it. Can you help me? So to create, you could have master's programs, bachelor programs, but you could also have workshops, seminars for your nurses, for your PSWs, for your end-of-life care workers as well. And then having that as a legal option would actually become an enticing thing for people around the world that are looking for long-term care.
Let's talk about it. We talk about it being a job creation in the market, right? And I want to talk about that because it's more than just, okay, we passed the legislation, find yourself some property and grow some weed. Right? And you don't just go there and just start planting and then just grow. There's a science behind. If you want a certain grade and level of what you're going to harvest, there has to be a kind of technique put in. Talk a little about that, because it's more than just farmers growing it and selling it, cutting it down and saying, hey, I'm selling weed, let's go.
Well, various strains are used for various conditions, right? So there's different cannabis strains that make you feel more alert, more awake, more focused. But then there are other strains that make you feel more relaxed, help with the pain management, insomnia, and things like that. So teaching people to understand the difference between what, I don't like using the terms indica and sativa because they don't fully apply to how the plant actually works. Those are older terminology before we understood the plant as much as we do. But when it comes to understanding, if you have anxiety, a sativa might not be for you because a sativa is going to lift you up a little bit more. And if you have anxiety, you don't want to have a high THC content either. You want more CBD because that's going to help mellow you out. So that's where, if people understood using different strains for different reasons. With my nerve damage, I have specific strains that help with when my pain's too high and I have nausea. If my pain's too high and I need to relax, I have a strain for that. If my pain's too high and I still have to work, I have a strain for that too. Right? So I have to have my brain cells and be able to function if my pain is through the roof. Right? So, and that's what understanding the different types and varieties of what is available out there gives people more option as well. So it's not just, I'm going to smoke this and I'm going to be on my butt on the couch. No. The understanding is, like I said, I have to deal with a lot of different business interactions throughout my day. And if my pain is putting me to the point where I need bed rest, I'm going to choose a strain that's going to help me focus, but keep my pain managed.
And you need to know how much of it to use.
That is correct. That is correct. So dosing, when it comes to the edibles, for example, everybody's got the story, oh, so-and-so gave me part of a brownie and this, that, and I was so sick. But that's part of the issue when these products are being made without a regulatory agency in place or standard operating procedures to say this, homogenization of the actual mixture, right? If you have a gummy, sometimes people will cut that gummy up into four people will share it. One of you gets a buzz, one of you feels nothing, one of you is in the bathroom on the floor crying, and then someone else is just kind of neutral. So that's where you have to understand when you're creating these products, they need to be done properly as well. And there is science behind everything. When it comes to this plant, it is all science-based. I mean, absolutely, is it fun? Have we had a ton of fun in the illicit market? Sure, many people have had it. But in this day and age, modern technology requires us to provide the information for people. Cannabis users are intelligent. Cannabis users are from all walks of life, every race, every industry. So everybody wants something specific to what they need. They don't just want to go get a bag of weed, smoke it, get high, and then be on the couch. That's not how it is anymore. And the ability to create, with tissue culture, precision breeding, that allows you to create strains that are high in demand and make sure you have a very clean product at the end of the day.
We always talk about regulation, right, in the Bahamas. And I think the fear here is when we move into this, how do you make sure that the right people get it and the right dosage, they get the right dosage, and that it's not abused, and that people who have it are actually supposed to have it. Do you have to carry around a card saying I'm entitled to have this? Do you carry around, your prescription, should it say it? How do you go about, because it seems like a whole lot that you have to put in place to ensure that the industry's standard is high and that it does not contribute to degrading society.
Right. So ensuring that's again where if you set up the Bahamian Cannabis Certification Standard, right? And that's where you would develop your own legislative bodies that create safe regulations for you. Now, if we look at the UN Single Convention Treaty on Narcotics, it's pretty stingy, right? So Bahamas has the opportunity to help modernize that as well, right? So you would work with those UN treaties, but why not look at modernizing some of the legalization processes and some of the UN treaties, right? So just, like for example, in the US, at last check, because things are changing there quite a bit when it comes to their cannabis, but cannabis is not federally regulated in the US, whereas in Canada it is. So we have an across-the-board country standardization. Everybody has to do the same thing. Everybody has to follow the same legislation. When you have a place like the US where state to state the legislation is different and it's not federally regulated, that becomes very, very difficult for both the patient and the practitioners to keep up on. Like, I have to read the news every single day to know, have they changed the class in the US? Because 1 minute they're going to do it, 1 minute they're not. So imagine being a patient that requires the medical cannabis and you're not sure if Monday it's legal and Tuesday it's going to be illegal. Wednesday it's going to be decriminalized. You know, then Thursday it's CBD only, right? So you have to be mindful that a standardization across the board that's where the people understand this is where the safety comes into play. By us putting the regulatory agencies in place and creating a standardization, then again, you go get your medical prescription. And originally, we used to carry cards around, but then obviously that's just when we were medicinal, but we have recreation, we have all of it now. So here, you have medicinal being looked at, you have your religious being looked at, and then you have your analytic research and development being looked at. So in that case, the people who have the medicinal, they would probably have to carry some kind of a card. And then you would have, you know, so you would go see your specialist, your doctor, and it would be a licensed doctor that would be working with your regulatory agency here. And then you go through, you get your prescription like you would any other. And then you also get education with that. So when you get your prescription through a doctor, they then, if you're not familiar with the plant, they then would send you to a nurse or, you know, somebody secondary that can go through the different types of strains with you and can help you find a reputable licensed producer to get your prescription fulfilled through. And that is what you would want to do here, because standardization fosters trust. And trust is one of the biggest things, because you want to ensure, is my cannabis being cut with something? Because like any other drug, cannabis is now being cut as well. So you have your standardization, because then for your people, they go, I see that label that says it's the Bahamian Cannabis Certified Standard. I know that this has gone through the proper quality assurance, the proper processing, and everything that needs to happen along the line from start to finish to ensure that the consumer has a safe product.
Is there an opportunity for export in this sector?
1,000%. There are over 50 countries around the world that have some form of a legalization use of cannabis. Many of those countries are not allowed to grow and produce their own. So that is your prime opportunity right there as a country who's producing, you're cultivating, you're doing the research, you're doing the medical, the university, but now you're also setting up import and export for global. And when you have your standardization in place, mutual recognition agreements around the world, MRAs, other countries are now going to look at you and go, they've standardized. We will accept that. We will put MRAs in place. And now we know Bahamas standardization, their safety, their quality is on par with, say, the UK's GMP, Canada's GPP, Australia has the TAG. So, you know, there's all these acronyms in this industry, but every country has their regulatory body where it is legalized, and they have a certain expectation and a certain standard of the product that they want. So if you want to export that by having your MRAs in place and by setting up your Bahamian standardization, then other countries will recognize you as you set up your MRAs as well.
You're from Canada. You have a lot of months that are pretty cold. What makes the Bahamas a good backdrop for growing and harvesting.
Oh, do you have
cannabis.
enough? Do you have enough time for this? So between your weather, right? So we obviously in Canada we have a very, very cold winter. So our harvest season is significantly shorter than yours. You are in a position where you have that sunshine all day long, all year long, and even your cold winter here is still
it's
minimal.
It's your summer.
Pretty much. So your cold temperatures here are actually the minimum temperatures for growing cannabis. And then you have marine opportunities, right? So you have all this beautiful medicine on your island already. So why not start doing the research trials into your marine and your seaweed? How do those medicines interact with cannabis? How does all your local plant life here interact with cannabis too, right? And create some very powerful, powerful medicines under strict research and clinical trials, right? And then that allows for your people, because research into the use of cannabis within the Black communities for their medical conditions that are more predominant within Black people is hard to find. It is minimal, it is not very up to date, and it's not very in depth. So if the Bahamas takes this opportunity and runs with the research opportunities, you could set up with UB, you could set up some amazing, absolutely amazing research trial programs for your people, specific to things like sickle cell anemia, right, which comes with pain. So why not be able to set up an opportunity where you have medical research being done, because we all know about the medical discrimination that happens. So by setting up your own clinical research trials here, you're going to start attracting the attention of people from around the world, and you're also creating that sense of trust within the Black communities for medical care, medical research, and it gives Bahamians an opportunity to potentially participate in trials that they wouldn't have access to anywhere else.
Wow, this is amazing. I knew, Solomon, we're out of time, but there's so much we could talk about, and hopefully we can get you back at some point to go into some other topics. But great foundation on what we need to hear, on what direction we need to go in. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and hopefully it won't be the last time.
No, sir. I would love to be back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. When we come back, a look at a key figure in the world of finance. Bahamas Development Bank Chairman is here to provide some important updates that you should be aware of. We're back after this. Stick close.
After 30 years of banking, I've decided to take a leap of faith. I moved from banking into an untapped industry, which is manufacturing in the Bahamas. And now we are standing on 3 acres of land on which we're going to be putting the Bahamas' first end-to-end plastic recycling company, Eden Recycling and Manufacturing Company Limited. Eden has 2 arms, recycling and manufacturing.
This is groundbreaking for us. It's never been done before. It really makes a difference, not only in the Bahamas, but even around the world. This is not just a project that we're doing so that we can make a couple of dollars. We want to make sure that it benefits those who come after us. In future generations, we hope that this is a small vision, that they will take it and they expand on it. We can have the formula for what it means to do end-to-end recycling in the Bahamas, in the region, and even if we have to export these ideas and thoughts and concepts even into the U.S.
Covering the news seems easy, but we put thought into what we're doing. The Bahamas Tonight Access Now, here to inform, educate, and entertain. A new type of newscast featuring social media trends, news from around the islands, interviews with the people you like in our communities, sports, weather, and fabulous entertainment. That's a Bahamas Tonight Access Now with Marlena Leonard and LaDon Davis. 7:30, Monday to Friday. Only the sun covers the Bahamas better.
The execution of a newscast is serious business. From the assignment to the concept of the story, everything has to be precise, on point, always. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, is your trusted news service. We get it right the first time. Our preparation for you each night is done with care, knowing that our voices will reach you on 700 islands and keys with unquestionable accuracy. It gives me great pleasure each night to say,
welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm your national anchor, Mukesh Lopinder.
We are here in the time of need. There's no discrimination. The mission is to relieve the suffering. We volunteer, we deliver care. With donors and partners, we're always here to turn compassion into action. Protecting life and health with our training throughout the years. We empower to heal the world. There is hope, assistance with disasters. There is shelter and love for our people. We can work together to help those in need. So volunteer with us and donate to show you care. There is hope, assistance with disasters. There is shelter and love for our people. We can work together to help those in need. So volunteer with us and donate to show you care. Together, let's build a more resilient Bahamas. Community farming for food security. Climate programs suited for our island country. Together, let's build a more resilient Bahamas.
This message brought to you by the Bahamas Red Cross Society in conjunction with the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome back. Great to have all of you with us. So if you're joining us online, wherever you're watching from, on whatever platform you're watching from, in the Caribbean, Turks and Caicos, here in the Bahamas, or around the world, it was always good to have you with us here on The Rundown. Well, many would say my next guest is located at the intersection of finance, technology, and national development. He's also the chairman of Bahamas Development Bank, Gil Kassar. But in this segment, we're going to talk more about his other portfolio. He's described as a man whose forward-thinking approach is helping shape the financial future of the Bahamas. As an active contributor to the Bahamas Financial Services Board's FinTech Working Group and a member of the government's Digital Advisory Panel, he recently delivered a powerful speech at last month's Bahamas Business and Investments Forum in New York City, where he enticed potential investors to explore in the country's growing FinTech sector. And of course, he indeed is the CEO of Equity Group of Business Development Limited. We're going to focus our first segment on that particular investment opportunity and that company. Please welcome my guest back to The Rundown, Gil Kassar. Welcome. It's always good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we were able to see each other in New York and at the Business Investments Forum, where we saw the Bahamas really try to put itself out there to the world, that we're open for business. First of all, how would you describe how that went?
Absolutely phenomenal. It was a really dynamic environment. It was amazing to see the amount of local leaders and also private practitioners that came out, and so it was a very decorated room that provided a very eclectic and diverse as well as comprehensive outlook of all that the Bahamas has to offer as a prime jurisdiction where people can feel comfortable with investing.
For people to sit back and say, well, you know, here we go, another talking heads meeting, another conference where lots of money is spent. These conferences are how relationships are formed. Talk a little bit about that.
They're very genuine, because in these forums, it's a place for real conversation. And what we did find is that the audience asked real questions, and often those that were pointed and revealing about some of their thoughts and how they would be thinking about investing and doing their wealth planning. And so it created an environment that showed the Bahamas in real time what the current appetite is like, but also in real time showed everything that we have to offer and how we've been keeping pace with the changing times.
Industry professionals and market watchers are watching carefully to see how the climate is going to be when it comes to investments and opportunity. Even tourism is watching to see whether figures will drop. They've seen some decline already. We were in the backdrop of one of the biggest cities, obviously, in the United States of America, the USA, in New York. And of course, the concern is with so much uncertainty going on in the U.S. economy, whether the climate is right for investment, particularly offshore investment in jurisdictions like the Bahamas. What is the climate like on the international circuit right now when you talk about investments?
Well, certainly people are watching all the dynamics of global geopolitics. Of course, it's always about seeing what's coming. And so when there is disorganization in markets and there is unpredictability, these are where the most savvy investors actually do their analysis and be able to decide how to be contrarian. And so you'll see that some of the most successful investors actually made their uptick during times of uncertainty. And so this is one of those areas where I find the Bahamas is demonstrating all those pillars of stability. That's going to position us to be the right choice. And so when we look at regulation, we've been keeping pace and leading in terms of...
Thank God we're on this list no more.
Exactly.
Right. We're doing all we can do to make sure we're compliant. Yes.
Absolutely, and the Bahamas is perhaps one of the most compliant places there is. And so when you look at regulations and the Digital Assets and Registers Exchanges Act, you look at some of the legislation around ESG, environmental, social, and governance topics such as carbon credits, and these are the topics about not where we are in finance now, but where we're going.
Right.
And the Bahamas has made a reputation for itself in terms of regulatory clarity, which gives investors the certainty that they need to be able to set their flag.
Let's talk about the sector, particularly offshore investments, because we know we have a robust banking sector, right? It's been that second pillar that we've been depending on for so many years. But then it seemed as though offshore banking, which was pretty strong, we saw a lot of mergers, a lot of closures in offshore banking. People wonder, well, are we having a struggle? Talk a little bit about what's been going on in the offshore market while we saw this period where a lot of people were here, packed up and moved away to other jurisdictions, or they merged with other persons. Do we still have that strong offshore presence that the Bahamas was once known for?
Bahamas still is a top, in my opinion, probably the top international financial center, all things considered. And it is because we have a comprehensive outlook, right? You have trusts legislation around succession planning and what's next. We have digital assets legislation. We have the banking legislation. We have investment funds administration. And we have all of this so that you're not really making a decision in a silo. And it's no longer possible, in my view, to think in silos. You have to think about the impact all across the board. Now, the Bahamas is in a particular unique spot because in all of the conversations that are happening, if you look at the global discussions, we've actually dared to go out and seek regulatory clarity. The offshore space is, in my opinion, still very, very vibrant. I believe that people are looking for a neutral place for a rest of the world solution. And I believe that the Bahamas is a good candidate for exploration because we have the human capital element. We're not occasional. We are committed. How many accountants and trust professionals and arbitrators, how many of those do we have? And you need those ingredients to be able to sustain something long-term. Clients in private banking and in offshore banking tend to be what you call sticky clients that stick around, right? Because this is about legacy. This is not temperamental movements. Right, and so this is where you find a lot of family offices and very dynastic thinking.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people will sit back and say, okay, well, we understand commercial banking. We understand the transactions that happen there. What makes private banking that much more sustainable and secure. And as you started talking about it, I said, okay, I get it. Because the services you're providing for that kind of clientele, they're more long-term, they're more sustained. They're not, I want to put my money here and then go to next week.
Yeah.
They're setting up for pretty much a dynasty and a legacy.
Yeah. Definitely, absolutely. And we actually believe that that is what Bahamians are thinking about too.
Bahamians are not getting in this
right?
space.
And so Equity Bank Bahamas is now a licensed authorized dealer that is able to provide all of the services that we've been providing. We're now going to be, as a group, celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, able to offer these same services to Bahamians.
This is interesting because before we felt, okay, offshore banks, that's the foreign people, foreigners only. But the fact now that your services are being offered to Bahamians, it's a turning of a corner, turning of a bend for Bahamians. Talk about these services. So people listening saying, well, really, I can bank with an offshore bank? Why would they be interested in your services?
Because we're not cookie cutter. We are tailored concierge level service. There's no waiting in lines. There's no impersonal connection. It's a true understanding about who is the client, what are their needs in a holistic way. Not just what their business needs are, but what are their family needs? And what is next for them? What are they concerned about? It's a relationship in private banking. And so it's not just transactional. What I would say is that with the level of professionals that we see in the local market, there's a big void for this type of treatment. You know, there's a huge challenge people are having with opening bank accounts, with being able to have, let's say, structures understood. And when you come from a private banking background, you understand what, let's say, another licensee may require in terms of their banking needs. Bahamians deserve private banking services. They deserve real trust in estate planning. Also, as for those that are doing projects that might require fundraising at any level, there's also investment funds, products, and administration where you can actually be the driver of your own mutual fund around a particular strategy.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So see, there you go. You can't say you didn't know that these services are available to you. So that's where you are in the market, in the sector of what you're doing with your finances. And you have some local Bahamian offshore banks that'll be willing to help you and cater to you and celebrate what it is you're doing. So if you were to describe the climate of offshore banking for the Bahamas, how would you describe it?
I would say it is powerful and it's prepared.
Wow. So hopefully you're going to be attracting some of these people from the international market who are now looking for the Bahamas. You know, people used to be afraid, say, well, you know, the Bahamas, they're going to release all my information and my taxation and everything else. But people can feel sure that you are well-regulated, well-organized, well-instituted, and can deliver the service and the product.
Absolutely. The Bahamas is one of the most compliant jurisdictions out there. It is also observation that, you know, there's a moving goalpost for a lot of small nations, right? But what is undoubtable is that the regulators are doing a global standard job. And, you know, anyone who has ever tried to open a bank account knows that we ask for a lot of things.
It could be a process.
And of course, you know, client confidentiality and professionalism is an entitlement of everyone. And so this is something that, indeed, you know, you are compliant, you know, you tick all the boxes, and the Bahamas is compliant for FATCA as well as CRS, and we continue to look at the global standard setters and to do our job, not only to participate, but also to lead those discussions.
All right, Gil Kassar. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the Bahamas Development Bank as we get ready to do a new budget year. What can we expect from BDB? We'll talk about that when we're back after this.
Your home is your sanctuary. The last thing you need to worry about is rodents. Once they enter your property, they can be tough to get out. If you're concerned about rodents, call Rent-A-Kill Initial. We offer the latest, most effective treatment for safe, fast, and long-lasting results. From prevention to elimination, our integrated approach guarantees protection. For rodent control you can trust, there's only one name in the Bahamas. Rent-A-Kill Initial.
The Hidden Disabilities Sunflower is a globally recognized symbol for persons with invisible disabilities.
The Sunflower lanyard made our journey less stressful, smoother, and more inclusive.
REACH is proud to support the Hidden Sunflower Scheme, which makes the invisible visible. So far, the Nassau Airport Authority and the Nassau Cruise Port are sunflower certified.
So if you see someone with a sunflower lanyard, always remember to be patient and ask if they need some help. Please be kind and always remember to show respect.
We wish to encourage more hotel operators with amenities such as water parks, restaurants, cinemas, government offices to join this initiative, making the Bahamas a more sunflower-friendly country.
Please feel free to reach out to the REACH office at 328-4123, or you can reach out to the National Commissions for Persons with Disabilities at 396-8700.
Tired of looking at the same old kitchen? Step 1. Our talented recommended designer, Mark, crafts a custom design just for you. Step 2. Once your design is ready, CBS Bahamas makes ordering effortless. Your dream kitchen is within reach. Step 3. Our recommended installers bring your vision to life, ensuring every detail is perfectly in place. Sit back and relax as your dream space becomes a reality. Visit cbsbahamas.com and start bringing your home improvement dreams to life today.
When a hurricane watch or warning is issued, medical emergency services are placed on high alert. For many persons seeking medical care, defining what an emergency is can be difficult to assess given all that is occurring during the storm. The following basic guidelines are designed to help you assess your emergency. If you are experiencing symptoms like shortness of breath, chest pain, severe pain, disorientation, extreme vomiting or diarrhea, vision disturbance or suicidal thoughts, you should seek immediate medical assistance. If you are bleeding significantly or otherwise severely injured, seek emergency assistance immediately. Children presenting with symptoms like high fever and extremely listless or lethargic behavior need to be taken to the emergency room immediately. If you are unsure of the extent of your condition, you are advised to seek medical assistance immediately. Share your symptoms with the on-call doctor and get advice as to whether or not it can wait until normal business hours. Remember, emergency care is not a convenient option for basic medical care during a storm. The Public Hospitals Authority encourages members of the public to use these basic guidelines to help decide on whether something is an emergency or not. The authority reminds the public that in the case of an emergency, always call 911 or head immediately to the emergency room. This message has been brought to you by the Public Hospitals Authority.
Welcome back. In this final segment, we're talking to Gil Kassar. We talked to him in the previous segment about his role as CEO with Equity Bank. We're now talking about a group of companies. We're now talking in this segment about his role as chairman of the Bahamas Development Bank. And of course, we know that the new budget will kick in on July 1. And a lot of people are touting this as a budget that provides opportunities and for people, but the government specifically touting the fact that it's for the entire country, island by island, development for the islands. And so I guess I want to start there, first of all, with any initiatives the Bahamas Development Bank is pushing that will impact people throughout the islands, particularly on family islands. What are some of those services that you can provide for them, or opportunities for persons on family islands as the government is touting that that's what this budget will focus on?
Absolutely. The Bahamas Development Bank is constantly looking at the various opportunities to assist, and whether it's the blue economy, green economy, orange economy, and really a plethora of different ideas that entrepreneurs have, we are looking to see how we can continue to foster those conversations. Of course, we do have the African XM funding available, and I got to tell you, applications continue to roll in.
Oh boy, don't be sitting there waiting, y'all. Take advantage of it.
And also what we're also finding is that not only do we need to focus on fostering the pre-funding preparation, but also on the post-funding support. And so this is a focus area where we are looking at, how do we build out a network of professionals that can be at the disposal of entrepreneurs who are funded to be able to stay on track. And beyond that, there's an obvious trend that entrepreneurs are seeking larger and larger amounts of capital, right? And so there's only so much that one particular financier can do for risk mitigation and also to be able to support a number of entrepreneurs. And so this has caused us to think about syndicate lending. And what does it mean to be able to perhaps look at assisting with a certain level and have that be conditional on other lenders coming in. And so these are some of the frameworks that we're thinking about because the Bahamian market is extremely ambitious in terms of the manufacturing, the tourism projects, you know, even the medical projects. It's just truly amazing to see the level of caliber of the entrepreneurs and how they're really not overly weighted even in just New Providence. You're seeing interest that's self-demonstrated by entrepreneurs throughout the archipelago.
What are there particular businesses you're looking at developing or business types that you want to develop throughout the Family Islands? Is there an understanding of what the needs are throughout the archipelago that we need to have more of to support local economies on Family Islands?
Well, the way that we think is really data-driven. And so we've been focusing on measurement and evaluation and really studying what impact is driven. And that is able to instruct you know, how we assess the potential success of a project. That being said, you know, certain islands have been notably aligned for certain types of cruise traffic, and, you know, other types of initiative that become more predictable in terms of what would succeed. But we're also very open-minded because sometimes entrepreneurs have seen something that is perhaps not widely known, but that is what's to come in their view.
As we begin to close, I want to give people an opportunity to understand what they should be doing in order to seek funding. I always like to stress this repeatedly because people always keep asking us after these kind of shows. In order to seek funding, what should entrepreneurs do as they prepare to, say, approach an institution like Bahamas Development Bank? What are some of the ducks in a row they need to have in order to make it a successful bid?
Well, of course, I'll start with the process. You can go to the BahamasDevelopmentBank.com. You can go under the financing tab, and it categorically sets out the various options. And then you can apply completely online. It's not difficult, but of course you have to be prepared with what you would expect: a business plan, a forecast, financials if you have them, if you've already been operational. And then of course, statistics and data around if you have a really well thought out business model. I would also say that it helps if you've thought about your ability to repay the loan. And so,
how are you going to do that?
And so, you know, the numbers need to demonstrate that you will have the wherewithal to repay it. And that helps in the sense if you're having letters of intent or already purchase orders or things that show that, you know, this is something that is predictable to a certain degree. It also helps if the entrepreneur has some skin in the game. And perhaps has tried to have some market response before coming. Not necessarily required, but it does help to say that, you know, you in some small way tested the market and have some initial customers. There's also a deposit requirement. And so in and around the 10% mark, I think when you're looking for funding, you should consider if you're able to fulfill that particular component. And there is a collateral expectation. That, of course, can be diverse. We also look at chattel in terms of collateral, whether it's what you're actually purchasing and studying what the value might be of that over a period of time. But then there's also the ability to get guarantees for funding in terms of what the SBDC has to offer, where there's a government guarantee behind the funding. And so in that way, instead of having to put up your own collateral, that government guarantee would essentially fill that spot. And so these are the things that you should be thinking about as you come for funding and exploring not just the opportunities that the Bahamas Development Bank has, but those by the Small Business Development Center and others. Yeah.
Listen, it's been a pleasure always talking to you. I'm glad to hear that New York is a success, and I'm really happy to hear that offshore industry is doing well, because that's a strong pillar of our financial sector.
Yeah.
And so, some good news here today. Kil Kassar, always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. That does it for the rundown. Be sure to stay locked on the ZNS network for the Bahamas tonight at 11. It's a final newscast in the country with the latest news and information with Royston Jones. For all of us here at ZNS, I'm Clint Watson. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
At Fort Montague, I'm Opal Roach. This is ZNS.